Welcome to the Happiness Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Welcome everyone to today's episode on anti-fragility and courage, a new addition to our happiness wisdom. I'm Julia Seal. I'm actually just back from a 10-day retreat called Slaying the Dragon, Conquering the Twin Terrors of Hope and Fear. Sounds amazing. It was primarily a meditation retreat where every day we sat for about 7 hours of unguided meditation, and then also we explored the Heart Sutra teachings of Buddha. While I'd planned this episode long beforehand, it has been influenced by my experiences on retreat and by the questions and insights from our teacher, Donal Creedon. I'd like to dedicate this episode as a thank you to the special time the 22 of us had together with Donal. We're now on to the 6th episode of this mini coaching journey within Series 1. Over these last few weeks, we've been exploring what we can do about our negative emotions right now at the start of our coaching together. So we're asking ourselves, how do we live with our negative emotions? How do we embrace them? How do we use them to actually feel better? How to fuel us? And how might they be our path to what we want most in life? Last week, I expanded on my 3 long, strong breaths coaching tool to include red flags and pause whenever you notice yourself buffering or wanting to buffer to distract yourself from something in your life. For the next 2 weeks, I'd like you to keep practicing this so that you can begin to nurture a new skill of awareness of noticing the things you do to avoid, resist, and react to the negative in your life, and particularly to the negative emotions of your life. At this point, bear in mind that the skill I'm sharing with you forms the foundation of how to truly transform in your life, and we start here, this small. Don't expect to become brilliant at it overnight. Try it, experiment with it, with the attitude of curious and interested. There certainly is no perfection and no getting it right. The perfection and getting it right is in just trying and keep on trying. So with you practicing this red flag pause 3 breaths process over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to shift a little of what I'm doing and drop some new questions, some invitations into the conversation. And I hope these will give you some fresh ideas and hopefully some insights into your current unhappiness, your dissatisfaction, discontent, and discomfort on our journey of how to feel better. This week, I introduce another happiness wisdom concept to build on those before, ones like the happiness paradox, happiness adaptation, and our most recent exploration, life is 50-50 and buffering. This is an invitation to consider anti-fragility and emotional courage, your anti-fragility and your courage, to consider how they relate to your unhappiness. We're on a coaching journey together on this podcast, but if you want to coach with me directly, I'm available every Wednesday where we can coach on anything. Even if you've heard something here on the podcast that you want more clarity on, these sessions are especially for you, my podcast listeners. So if you're confused about where to start coaching yourself, or the problem you're dealing with feels too big right now, you can book a session with me directly from our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. Click on the yellow button called Coach with Julia to go straight through to my calendar. Am I anti-fragile? Am I emotionally courageous? These 2 questions build on the earlier work we did with emotional intelligence. They look particularly at the pockets of where we are reacting to the world from emotional childhood, where we might be seeing ourselves, defining ourselves as victims, where we are not taking responsibility for how we're feeling, and where we're not living fully into our negative emotions. This investigation inspired me to bring you the work of two of today's thinkers, Nassim Taleb and Peter Bregman, to see what they can offer us as we contemplate these pockets of unhappiness and how they relate to our courage and our happiness wisdom. So let's see how their thinking can help us with the coaching we're doing here at Happiness Matters, and specifically now with coaching our negative emotions. Are you anti-fragile? This first question in our inquiry is round a concept called anti-fragility. Now, anti-fragility is an idea developed by academic researcher, trader, and risk analyst Professor Nassim Taleb, who is counted as one of the most influential 100 thought leaders in the world. And Taleb looks at the problems of randomness, probability, and uncertainty in our world. His most famous book is The Black Swan, which many consider to be one of the most influential books since World War II, and another, Fooled by Randomness, is described as one of the smartest books ever. These are part of a philosophical series called Incerto, which is Latin for uncertainty. And I like this overarching description of the series. An investigation of opacity, luck, uncertainty, probability, human error, risk, and decision-making in a world we don't understand. The book I'm inviting you to consider today is a more recent one, Anti-Fragile, Things That Gain from Disorder. Now, we're really only looking briefly at Taleb's work and how it relates to coaching ourselves and coaching our negative emotions. If you want to go into more detail, I have added some YouTube clips of Taleb talking about his work to our playlist called Insights. You'll find this playlist on our YouTube channel, Happiness-Matters.coach. Also, all the links to his books are in this episode's show notes on our website, also Happiness-Matters.coach. Now, Taleb proposes his concept of anti-fragility as an ability of a system, economic and biological like us, to benefit and grow from random events, errors, and volatility. Or the increase in the systems, that's us, the system's capability to thrive as a result of stresses, shocks, mistakes, faults, attacks, and failures. So I did get absorbed in reading about anti-fragility when researching this podcast. So I've pulled out some key points for you to consider, rather than overwhelm you with my own philosophical overwhelm. You can always read about the green lumber fallacy, skin in the game, and via negativa for yourself. So when we apply Taleb's anti-fragility concept to the difficulties in our life, there are 4 ways we can be in our lives: fragile, robust, resilient, and anti-fragile. If you define yourself as fragile, if you see yourself as fragile, you will avoid risk as much as possible. You'll try not to make any kind of mistake because you believe you won't cope. You'll think you'll break when something bad happens. And we do talk about ourselves a lot in this way. If we get that new manager, I'm just not going to cope. I can't bear the thought of my children leaving home. I don't know what I'll do. If you define yourself or see yourself as robust, you believe that you can stand up to challenges and mistakes. You can take them on and you can resist failure. Just think about Gloria Gaynor's 1978 song, I Will Survive. I don't sing often on the podcast, but I'm not going to sing this one for you. I will put it in YouTube for you. As an aside, I am sure there are many of you who love and identify with this song. For me, I really don't like it, but it pops up everywhere in my life. And every time I hear it, I'm transported back to my student days when I learned to be an aerobics instructor on the weekends. When I think about it now, I think about my robust state of mind to get through those grueling hours of high-impact step routines. If you see yourself as resilient, you resist shocks and you stay the same. You recover from failure, you bounce back. And lastly, anti-fragility, which is beyond resilience, beyond robustness. When you are anti-fragile, you get better, you get stronger, you actually grow and improve. So if we define ourselves as anti-fragile, we get stronger from our challenges and mistakes. We don't just stand up to them or withstand them, they actually make us stronger. So Taleb is offering us another way to be with our challenges and to be with uncertainty, discomfort, and unhappiness in our lives. He's offering us a different way to look at the other 50% of our lives from our happiness wisdom concept, life is 50-50, the yin-yang of our lives. So let's bring this to life a little more for you. Of course, I have to first go to Greek mythology. You know by now how much I enjoy drawing from the wisdom of the ancient Greeks. It's a favorite source of my squirrel moments. Hydra, or the Hydra of Lerna, was the Greek and Roman mythological creature that guarded the entrance to the underworld. It was a snaky creature, just picture this, with incredibly smelly breath. So smelly it was hard to get near. And a lot of heads. Some say 8, some say 50. And every time one of its heads got cut off in a fight, 2 or more would grow back. So the Hydra was a formidable force with a regenerative ability. So think of your anti-fragility as your Hydra ability. If you need inspiration, you can look into the night sky in the southern hemisphere between April and June. Hydra is the largest and longest of our 88 constellations. And as the story goes, Hera, the goddess of women and sister wife of Zeus, placed the Hydra along with the crab, Cancer, in the night sky after they were finally slayed by Hercules. Another example of anti-fragility for you that might be easier than night sky serpents is to think about your own bones. They are all anti-fragile. In medicine, Wolff's Law describes how your bones get stronger when subjected to stress and tension. If loading on a bone increases, the bone remodels itself over time to become stronger to resist that sort of loading in future. Tennis players are a great example of this. Their racket-holding arm is much stronger than their other arm. Are you emotionally courageous? This next question in our inquiry is to do with the concept of emotional courage. And let's just start by looking at the word courage. It's actually a word from the 1300s when Middle English was spoken. Things probably sounded quite different in those. Apparently, there was an actual change in how we sounded vowels between modern English and Middle English. So I don't know if I'm saying this word right, but here goes. Courage comes from courage, meaning heart, innermost feelings, and originally from the Latin cor, which means heart. It was mostly used for what is in one's mind or thoughts. Hence bravery, but also wrath, pride, confidence, lustiness, or any sort of inclination. and it was used in various phrases such as bold courage, brave heart, careful courage, sad heart, frais courage, free will. As a child, my parents used to do these epic holiday road trips from Zambia and Zimbabwe all the way down to the beaches of Mozambique. And my favorite road trip song was "We're off, we're off, we're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz." How many of you grew up with the Wizard of Oz, with Dorothy, Toto, Scarecrow, Tin Woodman, and Cowardly Lion, and their adventures along the yellow brick road? Apparently, it is still the most watched movie of all time since 1939. Cowardly Lion wanted to ask for courage from the Wizard of Oz. He knew that lions are supposed to be fearless, the kings of beasts. But since he felt so fearful all the time, he believed his fear made him inadequate, and he needed to get courage to live to his full potential. Emotional courage has been clearly explored as it applies to us at work and as leaders by Peter Bregman in his book, Leading with Emotional Courage. Bregman has written several books and writes regularly for the Harvard Business Review, primarily on accountability, collective action, and powerful, courageous leadership. He describes emotional courage as the courage to feel. It's what stands between us and the difficult things we must do as leaders. Emotional courage grows stronger when you practice it by taking a risk, making a decision, or otherwise following through when you may not be comfortable doing so. As you know, I'm also a consultant in employee engagement, and this is where my work as a consultant and a coach intersects: emotional courage. In my view, the most critical challenge of leadership is emotional courage. As Bregman says, theoretically, leadership is straightforward, but how many people actually lead? The gap between theory and practice is huge, and emotional courage is what bridges that gap. It's what sets great leaders apart from the rest. It gets results. It cuts through the distractions, the noise, and the politics to solve problems and get things done. With emotional courage, you will speak up when others remain silent. With emotional courage, you'll respond productively to opposition without getting distracted. With emotional courage, you'll weather others' anger without shutting down or getting defensive. And now we put together what we've learned about anti-fragility and emotional courage and apply it to the coaching we're doing together on the Happiness Matters podcast. In my view, the most critical challenge of our lives, not only as leaders, not only for your organization or your team or your family, but for yourself, your self-leadership, our most critical challenge as humans is anti-fragile emotional courage. It's what the wonderful Wizard of Oz gave Cowardly Lion. The understanding that courage means acting in the face of fear, not being fearless, true lion-hearted courage. If you are willing to build your emotional courage muscle, you become anti-fragile, and everything becomes a source of strength for you. If you are willing to feel everything, you can do anything. I want to say it again. If you are willing to feel everything, and everything includes the 50% of our life is 50-50 happiness wisdom concept. Everything includes your unhappiness now, your buffering now, your self-judgment now, your sadness, anger, fear, shame, humiliation, boredom. If you are willing to feel everything, you can do anything. This mini coaching journey within Series 1 is about coaching your negative emotions. So we're actually going step by step through a process of how to feel better. Not better and just more positive, but how to actively feel, how to feel everything so that you can do anything in your life. How you are becoming anti-fragile through this coaching journey, how you are building your emotional courage, and how you are becoming lion-hearted. In the spirit of the dialogue sessions on my retreat, and as we've been doing in our earlier episodes, I'm not here to offer you a one-stop shop formulaic solution today. This is a coaching journey together, where we're exploring and challenging how we think about our negative emotions and our unhappiness. This exploration cracks open new possibilities for you and for me until we've actually created the way through to our own version of happy and successful no matter what. So it's in this spirit that we look at what we've learned about anti-fragility, lion-heartedness, and emotional courage and apply it directly to our emotional life. Taleb, Bregman, and Donal offer us another way of being with our challenges, another way to view our unhappiness and our negative emotions, not just the duality of fragile, robust, but a way to get better and stronger and more happy and more successful from our challenges, from the negative in our lives. Firstly, let's look at how you're already anti-fragile. All of us have this quality. Can you find an example of when you were emotionally courageous, when you were lion-hearted, and when you were anti-fragile? I'm very sure you can. And if you can't right now, I'll give you one example that we all have. We all learned to walk when we were small people. We developed from crawling baby to tottering toddler, displaying anti-fragility. We weren't taught how to walk. We weren't given an iPad and pointed in the direction of YouTube to watch a video on how to learn to walk. No. We crawled and wiggled and rocked and stood and fell down over and over and over again. Think about the will and determination, the lion-heartedness that you must have felt inside in order to continue to get up and try again. The more you failed, the better you got at it. The more you fell down, the stronger your legs got. And the more times you tried, the more accomplished you got. So you already have this quality. You're already anti-fragile, with emotional courage and a lion's heart. Now, where else do you have it? A divorce? Death of someone close? A really bad manager? A dressing down by the CEO? A presentation that you fluffed? How did these experiences actually make you stronger? You've heard my story in the introductory episode 0, where I talk about my life and how I've ended up as the host of Happiness Matters, and I'm so passionate about unhappiness and self-leadership. Why I'm so passionate about us growing into a stronger version of ourselves, our next level of emotional evolution. So what's your story? And now, in all honesty, where do you not have it? Where are you being a victim in your life, at the effect of your life? Where are you in emotional childhood and handing over the power in your life? Where are you not using your anti-fragile qualities? And where are you not tapping into your emotional courage, lion-heartedness? Why not look specifically at where you're unhappy now, the pockets in your life where you're unhappy? Where are you suffering from negative emotions? Where might you be hiding from living your full life, buffering your negative emotions away? What might life look like if you were lion-hearted, emotionally courageous in this situation? What would it mean to feel the fear and do it anyway, like Cowardly did? Or to slay the dragons with the Heart Sutra? Or to chop off the Hydra's head so thoroughly that nothing grows back like Hercules did? What might life look like if you were anti-fragile in this situation? What if you looked at it as a challenge that will make you stronger, build your capacity, be more happy and more successful the more you face the challenges with this perspective? How might you actually welcome where you are right now in the midst of your negative emotions? How might you choose to walk the more difficult path, feel the more difficult emotions, and shine a light into those hidden areas? How might you choose to fail over and over again, to use your challenges, failures, mistakes, stresses, and unhappiness in service of growing stronger, of building up your strength, of learning from your mistakes? How might you embrace uncertainty or sadness or anger to become the most expansive, the most powerful version of yourself? It's so exciting to just let your brain go to these places as you consider your own lion-hearted happiness wisdom. Remember, there are several coaching tools that go with Series 1 and with this work we're doing in the insight sessions on coaching your negative emotions, including the 3 long, strong breaths tool. There's also an overview of this negative emotions coaching journey from this podcast episode's show notes, and it will help you navigate where we are in our coaching together at the moment. So you'll find all the free tools, the actual audio of each episode, and all show notes on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. This week, let these questions sit with you for a while. Contemplate your emotional courage. Have a cup of coffee and percolate, if you will. See how today's lion-hearted happiness wisdom can help you coach yourself. There really is no better time to do this work together, my friends. Before you go, please remember to subscribe to the Happiness Matters podcast to get our Tuesday episodes delivered to you automatically. There's a guideline on our website if you need step-by-step instructions. Also, we'd so appreciate if you'd leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if you're an Apple user and iTunes if you're an Android user. So thank you in advance for paying this coaching forward to anyone who works and wants to be happier and more successful. Today's anti-fragility and emotional courage conversation leads me to next week's invitation to you, the next step in coaching our unhappiness together, the call to grow ourselves, the call to evolve, and the real opportunity behind our negative emotions. I can't wait. Bye for now from the peaceful Goed Gedacht olive farm in Riebeek, Kasteel.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.